Welcome to Not Suitable for Work. I'm your host, Peter C. Diamond. You think your office is nuts? Wait until you hear some of these stories.
It's a story I tell people as a cautionary tale of what not to do in a pressure-filled situation.
And there's nothing like making a joke and looking at a room full of people who, are just stone-faced, and they know that you blew it.
What about our professional dynamic has given you a license to act in this way?
I realized she's kind of a mean girl.
Let's face it, people don't always bring their best self to work. Instead, they walk through the doors each morning emboldened by ego, power, arrogance, stupidity, and gossip. This is why tempers flare and situations escalate. It's bound to happen when people are crowded together all day long, in tight quarters, under stress, with no fresh air and limited sunlight. It's the perfect recipe to heighten everyone's crazy. I spent over 20 years in advertising and experienced firsthand an endless parade of amusing characters and situations that would keep me entertained. That's partly why I stayed in the business for so long. It was never dull. Now I'm an executive coach and help people make sense of the nonsense. With each podcast, I'll interview folks who have a humorous work story to share, just like friends kibitzing over coffee or a craft cocktail. Along the way, I'll offer tidbits of advice to help you make sense of your own office dysfunction. Don't worry, no careers were harmed in making Not Suitable for Work. Names and places were changed to protect the not so innocent. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. We've all had to do it at some point, starting a new job. Especially when you're young, this is stressful. Was it the right career move for me? Am I going to be successful? You're trying to make a good impression and fit in. But what do you do when your boss is a mean girl? Bridget has this story about her mean boss and how she should have listened to her gut before taking the position.
There might have been red flags in the interview because I remember thinking, okay, she's smart, but she did not come off warm and fuzzy at all, almost defensive. But I don't know. I was intrigued because what I was going to be selling was interesting to me, and it was definitely a step in the right.
So how old are you? Where in your career are you?
Well, I think I was 29, but I had a different background because I started off in sales, and then I actually went and got my master's in social work.
Okay.
So which I don't use and just pay $600 a month for my student loans on. But, and then, I kind of knew social work wasn't really for me, but the economy was crashing, and I just thought, well, okay, I'll stick it out because I was a full-time program. And then I, started working at Groupon right when it started.
Okay.
And then so this was when I was leaving Groupon. So I had a few years of very much sales experience, and this was a great next step.
So you're still kind of young. So you haven't quite
Yes.
figured out the nuances of different people's personalities in a professional environment like this. Is that fair, right?
Yeah,
right?
And especially, Groupon was great, but everyone, I was...
Probably everyone was 25 or something.
Yeah,
right.
I was really old there when I was 28. And my friend worked there, and she was the first... She was 28 as well. We grew up together, and she was the one that kind of got me the job at Groupon. And she was married, and she got pregnant, and they were like, oh my God, we don't have a maternity policy. No one's ever been pregnant here, So I went from a very, this was getting very much more into a corporate setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're interviewing her, and did you know she was going to be your boss?
Yes,
at the time?
I
Okay.
knew, yeah.
So, okay.
Yes. And then, so she was really pushing me to start earlier, to not give Groupon the full 2 weeks. And sometimes Groupon, depending, I think, on your relationship with them, sometimes people would just go that day. Mm-hmm. But they did want me to stay on. I think maybe just a week. And so I remember my last day of Groupon was on a Wednesday. And then I was starting on Monday.
Okay.
We had a going away party. Some other girl was leaving too. So we had this big party. So I had Thursday off. And then I was looking forward to those 2 days off. And then she was like, can you come in on Friday just to get your bearings? And I was like, isn't that what Monday, the first day of work is for? Why do I have to come in on a Friday? So she's like, only for a half hour so I could introduce you to everybody. We have summer Fridays, and I'm like, okay. But even right then, I was like, okay. And so I get there, and
so this is kind of when this is the little spidey sense goes up a little bit. This isn't quite right,
yeah.
but But it's, you're still early in your
new.
career, still
Of course
new.
I'll
So
say
you're
yes
like,
to
of course, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be like, no, I wanted to take this one day off. So, but then I got there and she texted me, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be 45 minutes late. And I was like, okay, so now I don't know anybody. So I just sat in my office with like my hands folded.
So they had an office ready for you.
They did, yes.
So they had an office. Somebody
let you in. But then I just sat there and didn't know anyone, waited for her. And that day was fine. I mean, she literally showed me around the office, and then I went back and sat in there and was like, I'm not sure what to do. And then she's like, you can take
I'm
off.
releasing you.
Yeah, so
I'm releasing you.
And I remember
from...
thinking that was like the most pointless 2 hours of my life.
Oh my God. Okay.
But she really, it was interesting because she really wanted me to come in, because the next week the president and the vice president were coming in to take the other sales reps on calls, and they were having like all our clients go to a Cubs game. And this is when I realized she's kind of a mean girl. Because there was a woman in our office who weighed probably like 300 pounds.
Okay.
So she was very, very overweight. Yeah. And she was nice, and we were kind of in like we were kind of like under the same umbrella, and we were merging companies, which wasn't, so long story short, this woman we were going to start working with her more closely, and she seemed fine. I think she kind of, I don't know, she wasn't, the woman that was overweight wasn't the nicest person that I met. She was friendly to me, but whatever, whatever. So my boss at the time, she wanted me to come in town, and also kind of awkward timing. She wanted me to meet the president and vice president. One I had met in person for the interview, but then it was like the two girls that were also sales reps, they were with all their clients at this Cubs game. I didn't know anyone. So it was very awkward. I just kind of walked around like I didn't know who my clients were.
It's the worst feeling. It's the worst feeling when you're new at a place and you're at a social event, and nobody really seems to be making an effort to say, hey, Bridget, come and meet so-and-so. And
no.
It doesn't feel like anyone was really kind of helping you to assimilate
They weren't. And the two other sales reps, they are like two of my dearest friends to this day, but they didn't know me, and they had to do their job by entertaining their clients. So I just
now I have to ask the question: like, is there booze involved? Like, is this when you're like this? Like for me, this is probably when I'd start like drinking. I'd be
she warned me.
Oh,
and I think I just had turned 30.
Okay,
and my boss warned me. She was like, I don't think I need to say this, but do not get drunk tonight. And I was like, it's like my second day on the job. I wouldn't put it past me, but I was like, I'm not going to get drunk, like, with class. I don't know. I kind of was like, I am 30. Like, I'm not 22. Like, this is my first job ever. So I think I had one beer. I was, like, just afraid. And I felt like, like a freshman in high school or something. Those feelings of, like, I don't know anybody. So she actually got kind of tipsy, and we, like, all split a cab back. And on the way back, I said, the 300-pound woman, let's say her name was Mary.
Okay.
So I said, so what's Mary's role exactly? And my boss, that I will call Samantha.
Okay. So Mary's your colleague, Samantha's your boss.
Yeah, Mary's the one that's very overweight.
Yes.
So I said to Samantha, my boss, I said, what's Mary's role exactly now with the merger? And she was like, oh, she's going to do this. And then she goes, can you believe we're the same age, me and Mary? And I was like, oh, no, I didn't know that. And then she was like, but who looks better?
Oh, boy.
And I was like, oh, because I was like, pretty much everyone looks better than Mary. And that sounds awful, but I was like, Mary is extremely overweight. And my boss, Samantha, also, I should make a side note, tells everyone in the world about her workouts and her love for kale and her juices, and she is very into her looks. So it was just kind of like, wow.
But is she also but does she fit too? Because there's some people who...
Oh, no, she is.
So
yeah, she's in good shape.
So she's like super
fit. And she's a very pretty woman.
Okay.
So it just was like, oh my gosh, like you are 39 years old or whatever, you are, and you just made like a mean comment. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm in for a...
She's also like pandering for like a compliment, right?
Yeah,
it's like what else am I going to say? I'm like 2 days in. Well, yeah, sure.
I'm like... I kind of was like, like, what? That's mean. Like, are we in high school? Because why would someone make fun of someone's weight? Like, it just was like, but I didn't know what the other two sales rep at this point, like what their thoughts were on her. So I couldn't really say anything to anyone. I just, looking back though, I should have said like, that's not nice. Mm-hmm. But she was my new boss.
But you can't, right?
Yeah.
But you can't, but you can't. Like, let's face it, you just can't. Because you're 2 days in, it's your boss.
Yeah.
And as much as we want to think that we're the better person and say something. You just can't.
You can't. Yeah. I'm like, you
kind of just go, you just file it away and you start like, and this is where the file begins, right? So you kind of start cataloging these events. Yeah.
And then they started getting more and more. And so that I started in June and, things were okay. I still, I really liked the two girls, but I don't know what Samantha, my boss, told them about me. I think she thought we wouldn't become friends. And they are two of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And like, I don't know if Samantha thought I like wouldn't ever like make a joke or something. I think she had a different view of what I would be. And I don't think she didn't want me to be friends with them because she kind of viewed them as this twosome that were very funny and people loved, even though she was the boss. It was so much a power struggle in this office.
So did you guys all worked for Samantha?
Mm-hmm. Everyone worked for Samantha.
And so just know, every time you say Samantha in this situation, I think of like Samantha from Sex and the City. Just so you know, like that is now the image that I have. But we'll keep going.
No, no. I'd rather work for Samantha from Sex and the City. She'd be fun to work for. So, we were meeting with a client of mine and, I didn't really have much to do and I couldn't go on sales meetings by myself yet. So everything I had to like run by Samantha and set the meetings and say, can you make this meeting with me? Because I was still learning the job. And so this was early August. So it had been about 2 months. And we had this breakfast meeting on a Friday. And this is when I knew things were really weird. So I had told Samantha on like Tuesday, okay, I set up this meeting. And she's like, great. She's like, you need to pull these files that what they ran last year with us. And I'm like, okay. So I worked with like our office manager who did that and we pulled the files and I kept putting time on our calendar. Can we go over this on Wednesday? I want to make sure I have the right stuff. And so she's like, I can't do Wednesday. Thursday, she moved it to like 4:00, which was fine. And then I was going to shadow a meeting with one of the reps. And I said, okay, I'm like, it's now 4:00 and I have to leave in a little bit. Like, how is this going to work? And she's like, why don't you just come in early tomorrow at 8? We can go over at 8:00. And our breakfast meeting was in the West Loop at 9 and like in Greektown. So even like farther down. And we were in the Loop. We actually were like more in Streeterville. So it was, on a Friday morning, it's going to be traffic.
So for our listeners, so we're in Chicago.
Who are in Chicago,
so
yes.
So in Chicago, and so in kind of in the West Loop area of Chicago, and your offices are...
They're in Streeterville.
They're in Streeterville, which is on the kind of the east side. So it's a good, it's a good 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Cab ride.
Yeah. And then add Friday morning traffic.
So...
Yeah.
Like there's a lot here that can go wrong from a timing standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she said, let's meet at 8. And even then I was thinking, is that enough time? But I don't know. I just have these files pulled. Like, okay. So I get there at 8 and she texts me, I'm running late, which she was always late. So she got there around 8:15, 8:20 and she looks and she's like, these aren't the right files. And I was like, oh, well, this is what, our office manager pulled. She's like, this is why we need to be prepared a day in advance. And I was like, I've been prepared since Tuesday. And I wanted to be like, okay, but this was all you, like pushing the meeting back, telling me to come, you're late. So she's pulling it. She's like, we just have to wing it. Oh my gosh, now it's like 8:50. So we're definitely going to be late. So we get in. She's like, I'm going to drive. First of all, a different little side note, every time we got in a cab, she would always yell to the cab driver and say, sir, we are not in a rush. And the guy would be like, or whoever would be like, okay. like
don't drive like a maniac.
And one of my friends, my colleague was like, that's going to backfire you on sometime because they're just going to hear the word rush.
Yeah.
And they're going to like go like a mad person. Like I've never seen someone yell at more cab drivers in my life. And I'd always at the end be like, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's funny. So based upon what you told me that she's always late, I would think that she's probably always in a rush.
No, but she's always, I think she like once, I got like a fender bender and like whatever. So, but this time we were driving and, she is like pulling out, she's driving like a mad woman. And she, I remember just thinking, it's not that big of a deal. Like we'll get there. We can tell this woman that we're meeting for breakfast that we're running late. Like the lady seems very nice. Like, I don't know. And she flicked off a cab driver. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, it was serious road rage. This is also like 2 months of knowing this. And I also just like, what's the big deal? So then she turns up her music and it's like a soothing CD that just keeps saying "Calm down." I was like, "Where am I?"
Oh my God.
So she's like, "Can you get something on the back seat?" And she had like this like dirty like negligee, and I was like, "Oh," okay. I thought like something. And her car was really gross. It had a million like smoothie like containers, like water bottles, and I just I don't know. It was just very eye opening. And she was just saying like, "This is why we need to be prepared a day in advance," and she was like really letting me have it. And again, I was so new, I didn't feel like I could speak up and say, like, I did have it. Right?
But so now, like, adding to the file is, okay, like, she didn't engage early. I'm now in this car, which, like, is bizarro land, right? Because that's always an interesting thing when you get in someone's car.
Yeah.
What their car says about them.
Totally. And, like, I don't have a car, but when I've had a car in the past, I'm sure it was messy. But I usually make a like note, like sorry about the mess. And she acted like it was totally normal, and it was really pretty gross. Yeah. So I remember and then the meeting went really well, and so then she was in a wonderful mood.
Now,
afterwards.
is she like? Does she turn it on? I'm getting the sense like in front of clients or an audience, like does she turn it on?
But she doesn't know how to read her audience.
Okay.
It's like. She was very into looks.
Okay.
And I don't know, like I just feel like in our, sometimes I'll meet with a client and I can tell that they, they talk about yoga and then you relate to them and you say you do yoga too or whatever. Or if they want to try something really healthy, then, But then I talk to people that it's like clear they don't work out and that's fine. But then I probably wouldn't like tell them that.
I
just did a 2-hour workout or something.
My new kale smoothie recipe.
No, they don't care.
They don't care.
Then they kind of feel bad about themselves.
They want to know like about the burger place that you went to with like the cheese fries.
Or you're like want to split the dessert.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they want to, I don't know. For me, I'm like, this is how you get to the client's level. And just actually anyone in general, not even for a client, like not even like just to meet, if you met someone, I just don't think I would like be bragging. And a lot of times I would be at meetings with people that clearly could care less. And she'd be like, well, I'm up at 5 with my personal trainer. And I'm like, these people don't care. And you're just making them feel bad. And then like talking about like.
It's exhausting.
It's
exhausting.
But she was also she was like a one-upper. For sure, in all aspects, but then also contradicted herself a lot. Like one time she came in my office and was like, do you have any snacks? And I was like, and I opened my drawer and I would buy like the mom size of like baked Lay's. Like it's like baked like Cheetos. They're all baked, so it's kind of healthy, but like baked whatever. And so, but I had those because I would like make a turkey sandwich a lot at work and then I'd have my chips. And she was like, oh, I don't eat processed food. And I was like, well, these are the snacks I have. And she's like, well, I'm starving. Okay, give me those baked Cheetos. So I'm like, all right, don't judge me on my baked Cheetos.
And then she takes the Cheetos. It's not even like I'm going to take the Lay's. Like, I'm going to take the Cheetos.
Like, and I also kind of pissed. I'm like, the Cheetos are the best. I'm like, don't take my Cheetos or Doritos. Like, no one wants the plain Lay's, Yeah, she was very into weight. And she would, and like I said, she was like in great shape. Okay. She really did have like
So she kind of walked the talk, at least on that part, right?
She did.
From a work perspective, like how is this kind of unfolding now for you?
The work perspective was so weird because she'd come up with these rules and say we're going to do stuff and then never follow through. So I never really took much. It got me to where I am today, which is great, but like it was a very weird sales organization and I had the worst like list possible. Like I was the third person added. So I was like kind of doomed. Like I had the worst accounts that like never ran. They weren't going to. So I was like climbing an uphill battle, but I don't know. I mean, I always think from every job I've had, and I've had a lot, I think everything I take away is usually the people that I find that I like that I end up staying friends with.
Oh, because, no, it's good.
Yeah. So, but after that day in the car, when she flicked off the cab driver and had the calming down music and yelled at me, I finally was like, I have to break my silence. And so I went into my coworker's office, who I love. But at the time I was kind of scared of because I think looking back, I think she thought maybe I really liked Samantha.
Oh.
And I don't know what Samantha told her.
So she's trying to figure out, are you Samantha's kind of gal?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be one of us?
Yeah. And so I was like, can I ask you a question? I was like, does Samantha get like, yeah. And she was like, oh my God, what happened?
I love it.
And then
so is
right
that when
away,
like that's when like the door closed? It's like, all right, let's talk.
oh, I think we got like a drink that night.
Yeah.
And then with the other one, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I find like we have this all out. I'm like,
You're my peeps.
I'm like, I didn't know if you guys thought this was normal. And they were like, no, we thought you like, you know, I think Samantha wanted to like make me a little Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think she was really upset when she found out I became friends with the other two. But that was like, so at that moment, like as much as I was worried about the job, I'm like, okay, well, at least I have friends here now. And I can, because we would have conference calls every Tuesday, and sometimes I'd go to say something and she'd go, shh. And she'd put her hand up.
You're
and
kidding.
Then,
like the hand to the face to be like.
yes. And she'd always be looking at us like, because she was leading the call.
So it's it's not even the hand in the face, but it's also the anger face.
But I was like, no one has
ever. It's like
ever.
that squinty little emoji, like where the eyes like go into the.
Yes. I just like looked at them, and then we all kind of started laughing, and then that even made her more mad. But I'm like, you can't shush another adult. Like she wasn't. I felt like she thought I was 9 and she was 18 or like she was like the babysitter, the older sister, and I'm like, but I'm 30 and you're 39. We're not that big of an age difference. She's someone that on Monday mornings I'd like walk by her office and just say, hey Samantha, how was your weekend? Kind of not really to ask really about her weekend, we haven't seen each other in 2 days, and walking in to put my stuff down, just a hello. She'd be like, I can't right now. I'm in the middle of something. I'm like, okay, I just was saying hi to be nice.
So we have like high degree of self-importance here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How long did you work? Like, how long did you work?
I worked there
under
for
this?
2 years.
For 2 years,
yeah,
under her. Mm-hmm. And what like?
But she wasn't a micromanager because she'd forget.
That's interesting. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I never.
Okay.
She wasn't actually that bad in terms of like. She was pretty reasonable on like. Well, I think she knew I had like a bad desk that I wasn't gonna like. Actually, when I left, I had just booked something really good, which I was like, oh man, I'm not going to get like the glory of that, or like the money from it, but I was just going on to a better place, so I didn't care, and I was not having to work with her.
So what would you say, so kind of looking back at this, what would you say, for someone, kind of advice for someone who maybe has kind of like a mean girl boss, like any tips that you would have for them to just kind of weather through it?
I think people like look for someone normal. They're always like, look for the helpers. I'm like, look for someone that will help you in the situation, get you out. Like, just find a little bit of your tribe.
Hard. Find some
that, yeah. And honestly, if you don't really, I don't think this is 100% true, but a lot of times people say people don't leave a job, they leave, or they don't leave people,
Oh, I know what you're going to say. They leave the boss.
They leave the boss.
It's so true.
It is true.
So true.
And I think I stuck in it for so long because I had those friends.
Yeah.
And it was a good company.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I liked what I was selling. So there were pros to it. And she wasn't a micromanager. So it was more of like a personality conflict. She bought me a book on dieting one time.
No.
So, yeah.
No, like it's just like...
It was like how to like reset your metabolism. I was like, oh my God.
I love it. That's so great. And it was just like, was it just like how did she present this to you? Was it like happy birthday, Merry Christmas?
Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was just like, you always make jokes about your weight. And I was like, oh, I'm kidding. I don't know. I'm like, I'm not really that, I was like, well, but I'm like, but you do know that I like, just joking. Like we the three of us made a lot of self-deprecating jokes, and she did not understand that type of sense of humor, and that's just like.
Did she have any sense of humor? Doesn't sound like she really.
No,
yeah.
No, and she'd laugh like wickedly, and she'd also steal our jokes.
Oh, nice.
Like she would laugh at certain things, and then we'd hear her say it to clients. I'm like, I just said that, I'm like stealing my jokes. Like
so she gives you. Yeah. I want to go back to the book because this is fast. So she gives you the book.
Well, I think what happened earlier in that week, I said. It was probably like 11:30, and I was like, God, I'm so hungry. I didn't eat breakfast today. And she was like, you don't eat breakfast? And I was like, no. I normally eat breakfast. I just didn't. And then she went off and she's like, well, I wake up at 5 and I have a half of an English muffin with peanut butter. And then I go to my trainer. And then I come home and I have my kale smoothie. And then I get to the office and I have egg whites. And she's like, I have 3 breakfasts. Do you know how important breakfast is, Bridget? And I was like, yes, I just didn't have it today. Like I woke up late or I forgot. I was just like, I just didn't have breakfast today.
Bridget, thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
here. I mean, it's just such a delight. And in particular, I think the one thing to take away from this is, and I tell this to a lot of my clients, is that people do quit bosses, not companies.
Yeah.
And, and I think you hung in there because you had some great people around you, but I think it's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah. And I also think, I wish looking back, I would maybe say, I kind of look back at myself saying, it's hard to do when it's a new boss, but people shouldn't talk about other people like that.
Yeah.
When you're in a corporate world and you're
Yeah.
women in their 30s about other women. I wish I had stuck up for Mary and said something like, oh, that's not really nice. that type of thing. But
you'll do it now.
I'll do it next time.
Yeah.
Next time. Hopefully I never meet someone like
exactly.
Samantha again.
Well,
except great stories.
Okay. Thank you again. I
Yes.
love having you on Not
Yes.
Soda Before Work. Maybe we'll have you come back again.
I hope so.
That'd be great.
I have a lot of work
Thanks.
stories. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bridget has continued as a successful salesperson in Chicago and has learned to listen to her gut more. If you want more Not Suitable for Work or have a work story to tell, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Not Suitable for Work. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. I'm Peter C. Diamond. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter C. Diamond. Not Suitable for Work is produced by Matt Cunningham at Truthful Enthusiasm. Get your story online with truthfulenthusiasm.com. Until next time.